There was a village nestled deep in a valley, a place where everything had its own quiet rhythm. The houses were all painted the same soft brown, like the earth after a gentle rain. The paths were straight and narrow, leading from one identical door to the next. In this village, traditions were held as tightly as a grandmother holds a precious teacup. Every morning the sun would rise and paint the sky, but the people below would follow the same patterns they had followed for years. They believed there was safety in being the same, a quiet comfort in knowing exactly what tomorrow would bring, because it would be just like today. In this village of quiet patterns lived a young girl named Asha. She was from a family of potters, people who shaped clay into the same sturdy pots and plates their ancestors had made. Asha loved the feel of the cool, wet clay in her hands. She loved the spinning of the potter's wheel, a dance that brought something new to life. But while her family saw clay as a way to make useful things, Asha saw a world of possibilities. She saw stories waiting to be told, colors waiting to be born, and shapes that no one in her village had ever imagined before. She was a small girl with a big, bright world living inside of her. The people of the village moved with a slow, deliberate grace. They spoke in hushed tones, their conversations as predictable as the seasons. They valued what was known, what was tested and true. A new idea was like a sudden gust of wind on a calm day, unsettling and unwelcome. They found beauty not in the unique or the surprising, but in the familiar repetition of their lives. A pot was a pot, a house was a house, a person was a person. Each was expected to fit neatly into the space that had been prepared for them, without any unexpected colors or lines. Asha, with her heart full of wonder, often felt like a brightly colored thread in a plain gray cloth. She would watch the other children play the same games every afternoon, their laughter a gentle, predictable melody. She would see the adults tending their gardens, planting the same flowers in the same neat rows. There was a peacefulness to it all, she knew. But a part of her, a tiny flame deep inside, yearned for something more. It whispered of a world where paths could curve and twist, where houses could be painted like rainbows, and where every single person had a different song to sing. Asha's hands did not want to make the same brown pots as everyone else. Her fingers wanted to create something different, something that felt like the dreams she had at night. She began to paint tiny birds on her bowls, but these were not the simple brown sparrows of the valley. Asha's birds had wings of fiery orange and brilliant red, as if they had flown straight out of the setting sun. She sculpted small flowers to decorate the rims of her plates, but they were not the simple white blossoms from the village gardens. These were flowers of her own invention, with swirling petals of deep blue and bright purple. When Asha showed her creations to her family, they would sigh. "That is not how we do things, Asha," her mother would say softly, her voice full of worry. "A pot is for holding water, not for holding daydreams." Her father would look at her fiery birds and shake his head slowly. Who would want such a thing? It is too loud, too different. The other villagers would whisper when they saw her work. They would point at the vibrant colors and strange shapes, their faces filled with confusion and disapproval. They did not understand why she couldn't just be like everyone else. The other children in the village began to keep their distance. "Your hands are strange," one boy said, looking at the flecks of bright paint under her fingernails. "You make weird things." Their words were like small, sharp stones, and they hurt more than she wanted to admit. Asha would see them playing their familiar games and feel a wall between her and them, a wall built of her own unique ideas. She tried to explain the beauty she saw, the stories the colors told, but her voice would get lost in their blank stares. They wanted the world to be simple and plain, and her art was anything but. So, Asha started to hide her special creations. She would tuck her fiery-winged birds away on a dusty shelf in the back of the workshop where no one could see them. She would only bring out the plain traditional pots for her family to sell at the market. She tried to make her hands forget the feel of creating something new and exciting. She tried to quiet the stories and colors that lived inside her, pushing them down deep where they couldn't escape. She wanted so badly to belong, to feel the warmth of being accepted, that she decided to become just like them. Slowly, Asha's world began to lose its color. She would wake up each morning and go to the potter's wheel. Her shoulders slumped with a heaviness she couldn't name. Her hands, which once danced with creativity, now moved slowly and mechanically. She made the same brown pots, the same grey plates, over and over again. Each one was perfect in its form, just like all the others in the village. But as she worked, a part of her felt like it was disappearing. The flame that had once burned so brightly inside her was now just a tiny flickering ember, struggling to stay lit. She no longer saw stories in the clay. The spinning wheel no longer felt like a dance. It felt like a chore. The joy she once found in creating was replaced by a hollow emptiness. When she walked through the village, she felt invisible. Before, the villagers had whispered about her strangeness, but at least they had seen her. Now they would smile and nod, pleased that she was finally fitting in. "That's a good girl, Asha," an elder told her one day, patting her on the head. "You make good, strong pots." The words were meant to be a compliment, but they made her heart feel even heavier. Asha tried to find happiness in being like everyone else. She played the same games with the other children, sang the same quiet songs, and wore the same muted colors. But it felt like she was wearing a costume that was too big and too gray. She would smile when she was supposed to smile and laugh when she was supposed to laugh, but the feelings never reached her eyes. At night, she would lie in her bed and think of her hidden birds with their fiery wings. She missed them. She missed the feeling of her true self, the girl who loved bright colors and impossible flowers. The emptiness grew inside her, a quiet ache that followed her everywhere. She felt like one of her own plain pots, empty and waiting for something that would never come. She had tried so hard to be what everyone wanted her to be, but in doing so, she had lost the most important part of herself. The village was peaceful and orderly, but for Asha, it had become a cage. She had locked away her own light to please others, and now she was living in the shadows, wondering if she would ever feel the warmth of her own inner fire again. One day, as the sun hung high in the sky, a traveler arrived in the village. This was a rare event, and people peeked out from their windows, curious and cautious. The traveler was an old woman with eyes that sparkled like distant stars and a cloak woven with 100 different colors. She did not walk with the quiet, measured steps of the villagers. She moved with a joyful energy, her colorful cloak swirling around her like a whirlwind of autumn leaves. She carried a small bag filled not with goods to sell, but with stories to share from all the places she had been. That evening, the villagers gathered cautiously in the main square, drawn by the promise of a story. The traveler sat down on a large stone and began to speak. Her voice was rich and warm, and it filled the quiet air. She told tales of cities by the sea where artists painted murals on every wall, making the streets come alive with color and imagination. She spoke of remote mountain communities where weavers created tapestries that told the history of their people, each one different and deeply personal. She described festivals where everyone was celebrated for their unique talents, whether it was singing, dancing, or inventing strange new instruments. Asha sat at the edge of the crowd, listening with her whole heart. The traveler's words were like water to a thirsty plant. She spoke of places where being different was not something to be hidden, but something to be celebrated. In these far-off lands, uniqueness was seen as a gift, a special contribution that made the whole community richer and more beautiful. The traveler said, "Every person is a unique thread. When woven together, these different threads create the most magnificent tapestry." Asha felt the tiny ember inside her flicker, a spark of hope igniting in the darkness. After the stories were finished and the crowd began to disperse, Asha found the courage to approach the traveler. She shyly asked, "Is it really true? Are there places where being different is a good thing?" The old woman looked at Asha with her kind, sparkling eyes and smiled. "My dear child," she said, her voice gentle, "your light is your own. It is not meant to be hidden or changed to match someone else's. The world needs your light exactly as it is. When you let it shine, you give others permission to let their own light shine too." Those words settled deep in Asha's soul and gave her the strength she had lost. The next morning, Asha walked into her family's workshop with a new determination. She did not reach for the plain brown clay. Instead, she went to the dusty back shelf and carefully took down her hidden treasures. She lined them up in the morning sun, the bowls with the fiery winged birds, the plates with the impossible blue flowers, and the little sculptures of whimsical creatures from her dreams. For the first time in a long time, she was not afraid. She took a deep breath and began to work, her hands moving with their old, joyful energy, adding even more color and life to her collection. When her family saw what she had done, they were silent at first, but this time they saw the bright, confident light in Asha's eyes. They saw the pure joy she took in her work. Her father picked up a small vase painted with swirling patterns of green and gold. He turned it over in his hands, not with disapproval, but with a newfound curiosity. Her mother touched the petal of a sculpted purple flower, and for the first time, a small smile touched her lips. They did not fully understand, but they could see that this was the real Asha, the one who had been hiding for so long. Asha decided to display her art outside the workshop for everyone to see. At first, the villagers just stared, whispering among themselves. But then, a young boy, who had once called her hands strange, came closer. He pointed to a bird with wings of fire and said, "I like that one. It looks brave." An old weaver, who had only ever worked with grey and brown threads, looked at Asha's vibrant colours and felt a forgotten memory stir within her. She went home and pulled out a box of colourful threads she had hidden away as a girl. Slowly, like the first flowers of spring pushing through the hard ground, change began to ripple through the village. Inspired by Asha's courage, others started to rediscover their own hidden creativity. The weaver began to add bright splashes of colour to her blankets. A carpenter started carving small, playful animals into the furniture he made. Someone even painted their front door a cheerful shade of blue. The village, once a sea of quiet brown, was becoming more colourful and lively. The laughter of the children sounded brighter, and the air itself seemed to buzz with a new and wonderful energy. Asha's authenticity had not only set her free, it had shown everyone else the way. Being true to yourself is a gift, not just for you, but for your entire community. It allows everyone to grow, to blossom, and to create a world far more beautiful than one where